So we actually have a new proposal for Social Security, and I want to address what is going to be included in this new proposal and what are the chances that this even passes. Because again, this proposal is going to bring in about $80 billion in funding for Social Security. It's also going to prevent the government from taking money from Social Security and Medicare. So this is actually big news. Now, I just want to preface this by saying that the person that is proposing this is also the person that proposed a bill last February. And in his proposal, it was to sunset Social Security every 5 years. This is the person that President Biden was referring to and almost bashing during his State of the Union address. Now, I want to be very clear on this. Do I think this is going to pass? No, because this is a Republican senator. This is Senator Rick Scott from Florida who's proposing this. However, the mere fact that he's proposing this shows that there's willingness. Okay, so again, let me explain what's going on first. So this was a bill that was proposed yesterday. So on Friday, February 10th, this is what was proposed. Senator Rick Scott from Florida, he announced that he wants to increase funding to Social Security. That's good news, right? That is good news. But how are we going to increase funding? Are we going to increase taxes? Are we going to cut spending? Right? How are we going to increase funding? What are we going to do? Well, he didn't say anything about making the millionaires and billionaires and the richest people in the United States pay their fair share. He didn't say a single word about that. What he said is he has been fighting since day one to protect and preserve programs like Social Security and Medicare for Florida's seniors. And today, I am proud to announce new legislation, my Protect Our Seniors Act, to safeguard the benefits of these critical entitlements. Now, where's the money coming from? Well, this is where it could be, very iffy. Senator Rick Scott, he's proposing that we rescind the nearly $80 billion in funding that is going to the Internal Revenue Service and take that money. Again, that was approved in the Inflation Reduction Act. He wants to take that money and he wants to redirect it towards Social Security and Medicare. Now, again, the thought process behind this is let's increase funding to Social Security and Medicare. But the other thing they need to keep in mind is he's trying to target the one thing that President Biden has been able to do. Okay, well, there's been other things as well, but this is a big one. He wants to provide 87,000 new IRS agents in order to do that, in order to speed up the IRS. Because again, let's be honest, they've been extremely slow. But Republicans are trying to pull back that money. They're trying to claw back that money. All right, so that's what his bill would do. However, here's some changes. Okay. This is not the sunsetting bill that he proposed last year, which is good because honestly, that had no chance of passing in the Senate. But here's something that he is proposing. It says the bill would also require that any cuts to Social Security or Medicare, okay, any cuts, doesn't matter which one, this would have to be approved by a 2/3 vote in Congress. Not a simple majority, a 2/3 vote. And this would block Medicare savings from being used for other spending initiatives. That is key, okay? There's two big things here. Do I think the provision of clawing back $80 billion and pulling it from the IRS to give it to Social Security, do I think this is going to happen? No, absolutely not. This wouldn't pass in the Senate. And would it pass in the House? It possibly would. But why are they not voting for it? Well, it's not really going to pass in the Senate. Okay, so just because it passed in the House doesn't mean it's going to go to the Senate. It's just going to sit there and die. We know that. We've seen it before. But the two provisions that I think it's good, it shows a willingness to negotiate, is he wants to, and again, there's little bipartisan support on this already, because again, it's only been out for a day. But the good news is that he wants to require that any cuts to Social Security and Medicare would need to be approved by a 2/3 majority in Congress. Okay, that's going to be difficult, especially talking about cuts. That's going to be very difficult. And then it would block Medicare savings from being used on other spending initiatives. We've seen this before. When Medicare saves money, right? The savings that they have, well, some of that money gets pulled from Medicare and gets used elsewhere. Why would we rob from Peter to pay Paul or something like that? Why would you do that? And this is where some say that Social Security and Medicare, they're Ponzi schemes, because they're just getting people in underneath, right? And they're just paying the first person. Well, I don't know. But again, if we just keep robbing from one person to pay another, and then that person or that program can't be funded, doesn't have the funding, what are we doing? It makes absolutely no sense. Now, I want to be clear on something else. There are a lot of Republicans that are very upset that President Biden even brought up the fact that there was a Republican that wants to sunset Social Security, and for him to talk about it during his State of the Union address. But this is what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say this week. I believe it was like Wednesday, I believe it was Thursday. He said, and I quote, "That's not a Republican plan. That was a Rick Scott plan." And he goes on to say, the Republican plan, as I pointed out last fall, if we were to become the majority, there were no plans to raise taxes on half the American people or to sunset Medicare or Social Security. So it's clearly the Rick Scott plan. It is not the Republican plan, and that's the view of the Speaker of the House as well. So the two Republican leaders, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, both say that no, they're not going to make cuts to Social Security or Medicare, but they want to figure out a way to provide additional funding to shore up the programs so that they do not become insolvent. Medicare could become insolvent within the next 5 years. Social Security could become insolvent in the next 10 years. Again, this is a problem and it has to be addressed soon. So, here's what I know. Right now, lawmakers, they are still addressing Social Security. They're still addressing Medicare. They're still addressing the debt ceiling. But right now, there's not a lot of negotiations because they're still trying to figure out how much money the U.S. government actually has. If the U.S. government brings in a lot of money from taxes, well, that's good news. Bad news for us because we're paying more in taxes, but good news for other programs like Social Security, okay, like the debt ceiling, because now instead of the U.S. defaulting on our debts come June or July, if we don't have a lot of money, it could be even sooner by like 2 weeks to a month. So the same goes for if we bring in more money, we could actually go through these extraordinary measures for a little bit longer, possibly another 2 weeks to maybe 4 weeks, and push us back into maybe the end of July or possibly even August. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but as we know more information as to what is going on, the good news from Social Security at this point is more lawmakers are not planning on cuts. They're not planning on voting for a sunsetting bill. They're planning on voting for additional revenue to come in. As to where we see it, well, that's the big question. So if you have any questions whatsoever regarding Social Security or Medicare, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Again, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.